Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Ansar Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C levels across the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy globally with our league of extraordinary gentlemen and women who are not only domain experts, but key thought leaders who have made a significant mark in the fields that they're working in. Today, as well, we've got a very special lady with us, Miss Aliya Zafar. She is the Group Head, People and Organizational Excellence at the Bank of Punjab. Aliya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here.
Alia, we've heard you speak earlier as well professionally. You've had many achievements. But what I would like to begin with is knowing how did you end up here at such a key post, despite of being a woman in, banking, a culture where it's not very common to have a lot of women in leadership. So where did this journey begin? Where did you grow up? How did it all come about?
Right. So I think it's interesting to when you look at it from a perspective of a female, getting where I am, considering our industry, of course. But I started with the civil services. So
Oh, wow.
I worked there for about 11 years, and then I moved to banking because I was thinking more from a perspective that I want to have varied experiences in my life, especially in my career. So I moved from civil services to this side on the corporate side, and then I also then moved to the development side. So I worked in the development sector. I worked with the United Nations, and so I've basically tried to have a more holistic professional experience wherever I have been. What it has given back to me, I think, has been a set of skills which is rather unique because most of the time when
Yeah.
you come across resources, they tend to stick to one type of industry, one type of career option. But I actually have been moving in various dimensions from that perspective. That has really helped me. So I think that diversity of skills has actually helped me to be where I am.
Yeah, and this multifaceted approach has given you a lot of perspective on a multitude of things. Alia, this past year or 2 years almost now, with the pandemic, we've seen a lot of changes, right? And like, for example, work culture has changed. The definition of work has changed. There's things like work from home and remote work, and culture has changed at the workplace. Another way that we've seen that technology has impacted businesses in particular, be it the banking side of things or retail and e commerce, we've seen a lot of changes. How do you think technology is impacting our lives, especially post pandemic?
I think more and more we need to understand and rely on technology and also understand that it's something which is not going to go away. So, what was happening earlier, especially in the banking industry in itself is a very risk averse industry. So, everyone working within that industry tends to go slow on innovations, at least on the digital side. And that is, I think, pre COVID. What COVID did was push everyone's hand forward because it had to be done. So there was no other way around it. And that actually has helped organizations. I think it has helped the industry as well realize that it can be done at a much faster pace than we were doing it earlier, and how it actually is impacting lives. I think going forward, even now, the millennials are very much familiar and were very much familiar with a lot of fluidity of work spaces. But now the XYZ generations, everybody understands that yes, fluidity in terms of where you sit and work, whether it's from home or it's from office or it's from some other place, it essentially is focusing on the productivity and what you bring to the organization. And that productivity can be enhanced even when you are sitting at home. So it's looking
Right.
at your own life from a different angle and perspective and seeing what is giving you back in terms of mental well-being, what you get out of your job in terms of satisfaction, and also how you are looking at your life holistically. So, a lot of, I think, introspection has started in people and in organizations as to what can be a best mix of going forward of the digital technology helping us to have more fluid workspaces, and which will essentially move all of us towards better balance of mental health. Essentially, I think it's a lot about well-being of all of us. So I think the
Right.
focus has
That's
shifted only from the profit side to the well-being side as well.
right, and it's great to hear those words from you. You spoke about it more holistically, but now let's get a little more specific. What was your strategy with, as the group head of people and organizational excellence at BOP during, the pandemic? Did you have to do any firefighting? Did you face any challenges?
Um, so I was in two organizations during this time. I was with another bank earlier and then with BOP. And in both these, I think one of the most important things is actually planning. When you have any kind of a challenge in front of you, any kind of a calamity, such as pandemic, which nobody had envisioned, you need to go back to the table and sit together and really look at what are the elements that we need to manage in a different way. So, looking at the operational side of banking, of course, banking is part of the essential services. So, we could not close down all our branches. So, we went down up to 50% of workforce, and at one time, up to about 60 to 70% of our branches were open and remaining were not open. And this was all sort of structured around what was happening in terms of state bank and how all the banks were looking at all these aspects. So one part was coming from there, and the second was how we were implementing the SOPs, how we were looking at the welfare of our employees. So we were the only bank at BOP which actually went ahead and announced a COVID bonus for all the employees. So instead of actually downsizing and closing down jobs, we did not opt for that either. We tried to support the people that we have with us. And then going forward, also in terms of expenses of COVID, of your family also. So in every way where we could, we tried to provide the support and the comfort that our employees required at that very difficult period of time when they were always there for the bank and for the community. It's not just for the bank because this is an essential service. So I think giving back to the employees was one of the key areas that where we were pretty much leading the industry. And then also having all the tools available in terms of fumigations, in terms of having all the sanitization of places and spaces, having SOPs around. So having all those strengthened day in, day out, so that everybody was safer while they were at work as well. So these were the two aspects in terms of strategy.
Lovely. Now, Alia, we do know that BOP is at the forefront of, enabling Sharia compliant Roshan digital accounts, and also, the Kamyab Jawan program and e-banking and everything. Now, how are banks transforming these days from the perspective of work being a group head?
I think there's a lot of transformation in terms of how the banks also approach their work, um, and we talked earlier about the digital transformation. A lot of this actually links with the digital part of the journey of our bank. So we are very much heavily investing in digital platforms and how we are also looking at all these aspects going forward. In terms of communities, in terms of financial inclusion, you've just, of course, talked about Roshan Digital and all other aspects in terms of, expats being able to have accounts here. Our communities at large, low cost housing, there are so many components where our bank is actually leading and providing loans. Kamyab Jawan, of course, is something which is extremely, I think it's extremely important
Right.
for the economy, for all of us in Pakistan. So having these initiatives and having our resolve to get these out as much as possible and to help the communities as much as possible is something that actually is transforming communities, not just what we are doing in terms of other areas which we were working on earlier as well. So it's certainly, I think, the right direction for the banks.
Right. Absolutely. Now, when we talk about the banking sector, there's a lot of it has to do with, data and information. How can that be utilized for better performance and better growth?
So, data, of course, the data that you have with banks, two types. One data is that of customers, which is really something which is it has its sanctity, I would say. So it's not something that you can utilize for a number of areas, of course, because it's really a trust somebody has put in a bank. So that component I wouldn't speak of. But then there are other components in terms of internal employee data and how we utilize various trends in data analytics within the banking industry in terms of how we look at our businesses, how we look at the growth trends, how we are looking at various industries, and how these industries can be supported. So, from that perspective and from internal employees' perspective, data analytics is one of the key factors and areas which most of the progressive banks really are focusing on. We are definitely working very hugely in this area. So every decision that we make, of course, has to be driven by analytics, and that data analytics has to be the basis of all the good decisions that we make. Because without that, obviously, you can absolutely go haywire in your decision making. So it really forms the very baseline of a number of elements that you see anywhere in the banking industry.
Right. Very, very true. Now, how do you manage difficult situations at work or difficult conversations? I'm sure being the group head of people does.
Yes, I think with
I'm
a
sure
lot of
being the group
empathy.
head
That's
of people does inculcate. Yeah.
yeah, it does. So yes, I will just sort of go over a
Right.
few things.
Yeah,
It's a difficult
but
area
I'm sure
also
some
to talk about.
conversations are more difficult than others.
Yeah. So what happens is difficult conversations are difficult so long as you do not understand the need and the space that the other person is at that moment in time. I think it is very important for us as humans, for us as colleagues at times, to be honest with each other. So while you are honest with each other, it is also extremely important to understand the perspective that the other person has. So the difficult conversations become a little less difficult if you are really upfront and honest and clear in your communication. You understand the other person's worries at times, complaints at times, concerns at times, and you give space to the other person and have a discourse without getting personal, without getting your ego involved. So keeping it very real, and yet keeping it also extremely professional. So, because in organizations, most of the challenges and most of these difficult discussions revolve around a particular issue which relates to business. And once you have that, you also need to sort of segregate a little bit from from the fact that this is about fixing something, this is about creating value, this is about creating a better environment, better productivity. So you are focusing on the right areas, and through doing that, you are also being honest and you're also being straightforward. So instead of not managing it or trying to dodge it, I tend to take on these very directly, and that tends to work much better, I think.
Makes sense. So, what are some of the things that you do not like to do?
Okay, I'll have to think on this one. What I don't like to do, there's because there are too many things I like to do. So, like one of my ex bosses says, you create work for yourself, because I like to get into everything, literally. What I don't like, that's a very tough one. What I don't like to do myself is, I think, to be harsh or to be rude. I wouldn't like that. Um, I don't think I would like to be not have empathy. I think I do have a lot of it. These are the things I would probably not like to do. I would not like to be dishonest or lose my
True.
integrity in anything that I do. So I have my professional
That's the
opinion,
most important quality.
and I do not like to hold it back. So I tend to give my professional opinion. Sometimes it can be tough. So I do not like to hold it back at all. So that's for sure.
Right. Alia, for those of the audience that are not aware, um, let me tell you, I'm super proud of the fact that you happen to be the first female member of PCB's Pakistan Cricket Board's Board of Governors. And that in itself is like a dream come true for many. How has that experience been? So, being a conventional, organizational head at one end, and then being a member of PCB.
Yeah. I think it's I like there are a few things I'm proud of. This is definitely one of them, and I'm really thankful and grateful to God that I actually got that opportunity. It's extremely interesting to say the least. It's a wonderful organization to be engaged with. I love cricket. Yeah, everybody loves cricket in Pakistan in any case, so I shouldn't even say
Everybody
that.
loves cricket. It could be like our national hobby as well.
It is,
Just watch cricket.
and that also becomes, I think, a little bit of a challenge because then everybody is also a cricket expert here. So obviously, the
Yeah,
for the PCB, it becomes everybody has an opinion about cricket and about everything about cricket, and it's perfectly. I think it's wonderful to have that because there's a lot of interest. So having that interest, I think, also is something which is very positive,
but
and which can,
there's also a lot of criticism.
yes, but criticism is
I
not
said there's
something
also
that.
a lot of
Yes, you're right. You're right. But you see, you have to see from public discourse, from criticism also. At times, you can get positive things out. I'm thinking in terms of governance. So you can always look at criticism also in a positive way. I think because sometimes you may be course correcting while somebody is giving you a good opinion. feedback. Obviously, that implies that the criticism that you receive is logical and it's based on some good assumptions and good analysis. Certainly, and it happens. Not all of it, but some of it, of course, is always. It's good to have criticism always. It's diversity, essentially. It's diversity of thought. And we should be able to not just accept, but appreciate and see how we can utilize some of it.
Thank you, Alia, for the positive message. Unfortunately, we've come almost to the end of today's session, but thank you very much for disseminating all that information. We learned a lot from you today. Um, do you have
Wonderful.
a message for the audience that's watching?
Yes, I think just one thing, whether males or females, wherever you are, whoever you may be, try every day to compete with yourself and to try and see what you can make better and try to give to others around you. So, when you are giving to others, you will be receiving so much more that the abundance of, I think, God comes back to you. That has been my life lesson. You give more to everyone around you. Remain positive always. Try to look at the positive of everything around you, and you will do well. And so, best of luck to all of you.
Yes, do you have a message for the audience that's watching us right now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I lost you a little bit there.
No, no, I said, do you have a message for the audience that's watching us right now?
So I did actually speak. So I'll just repeat myself. So what I said was try to remain positive and try to give as much as you can to others around you, and the abundance of God will come back to you. I think I have been a recipient of that, and I still am a recipient of that because a lot of what I have achieved, I think I strongly believe it's also coming from the blessings of a lot of prayers around me. Try to be a giver. Try to be a giver at all times. Try to be very positive and also try and compete with yourself and make every day a better version of yourself. So that's my message, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much. And as the last question, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the utility of forums like CxO Global?
I think these can be extremely productive because a lot of us have varied experiences, varied perspectives. So the forums actually, I think they bring out these perspectives. And normally we don't have time to go over these aspects of life, and we do not have that connection with everyone. So this creates like a network and a connection, and these connections can be extremely positive because they give you space to introspect, they give you material to think about, and hopefully some of it will stick, and some of it you can probably take forward in your own lives. I think we also learn because when we speak with presenters like you do such a wonderful job. It's like you make us think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of things which we probably wouldn't be thinking of. So it means that you tend to focus more on those areas as well. So you also go back and you introspect. So it's like a growth for me as well. I think for the presenters also. So it works both ways. It's a win-win situation always.
very much for your kind words, Alia. It has been amazing sharing knowledge with you. Please keep speaking to us. Please keep making us all learn from your experiences.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That will be all for today. If you want to learn more about the kind of work that Alia is doing at the Bank of Punjab or at PCB, please check out the link in the description below. We hope to hear your feedback